across the face. By the time I actually managed to get to a television set to see the live report, it was clear that the plane had in fact survived the landing with minimal structural damage, and a significant number of survivors were clearly visible standing on the wings, waiting for the ferries and police boats that would rescue them. I penned a quick, sheepish entry promising to keep mum about air safety for a while and mothball that piece I was working on about the planet's amazing streak of avoiding species-extinguishing asteroid collisions. Then, a funny and wonderful thing happened. The world quickly learned that all 155 passengers and crew aboard Flight 1549 had survived, with almost no serious injuries. Flight 1549 went from being a devastating rebuke to my optimism about commercial aviation to being a ringing endorsement of it. If you believed in that sort of thing, you might have said that I had tempted fate, and fate had blinked. Of course, I had nothing to do with the safe landing of U.S. Airways 1549. The question was, who or what was responsible for that plane managing to lose 2 engines during takeoff and still keep its cargo secure? The mass media quickly offered up 2 primary explanations, both of which turned out to be typical interpretations of good news. First, there was the hero narrative. Captain Chesley Sully Sullenberger, who had indeed brilliantly navigated his plane into the river with great poise under unthinkable pressure. And then there was the quasi-magical rhetoric that quickly became attached to the event, the miracle on the Hudson. Those were the 2 options. That plane, floating safely in the Hudson, could be explained only by superheroes or miracles. There was no denying Sullenberger's achievement that day, but the fact is, he was supported by a long history of decisions made by thousands of people over the preceding decades, all of which set up the conditions that made that perfect landing possible. A lesser pilot could have still failed catastrophically in that situation, but as good as Sullenberger was, he was not working alone. It was surprising and thrilling that all 155 people survived the crash, but there was nothing miraculous about it. The plane survived because a dense network of human intelligence had built a plane designed to withstand exactly this kind of failure. It was an individual triumph, to be sure, but it was also, crucially, a triumph of collectively shared ideas, state-funded research, and government regulation. To ignore those elements in telling the story of the miracle on the Hudson is not to neglect part of the narrative for dramatic effect. It is to fundamentally misunderstand where progress comes from and how we can create more of it. Any attempt to explain the confluence of events that came together to allow Flight 1549 to land safely in the Hudson has to begin with the chicken gun. The threat posed by bird impact strikes to aircraft dates back to the very beginnings of flight. The Wright brothers recorded bird strikes in their journals during their experimental flights in the early 1900s. The primary vulnerability in a modern commercial jet lies in birds being ingested by the jet engine and wreaking enough internal damage that the engine itself fails. But there are degrees of failure. An engine can simply flame out and stop functioning, or it can shatter, sending debris back into the fuselage, potentially destroying the plane in a matter of seconds. The former, it goes without saying, is greatly preferable to the latter. Most bird strikes involve only one engine, leaving the plane perfectly capable of flying on its remaining engines if the main structure of the plane is still intact. Today's jet engines are therefore rigorously tested to ensure that they can withstand significant bird impact without catastrophic failure. At Arnold Air Force Base in Tennessee, a team of scientists and engineers use high-pressure helium gas to launch chicken carcasses at high velocity into spinning jet engines. Every make of engine that powers a commercial jet aircraft in the United States has passed the chicken gun test. The chicken gun, it should be noted, is an exemplary case of government regulation. Those dead birds being shot out of a pneumatic cannon are your tax dollars at work. For the passengers flying on U.S. Airways 1549, those tax dollars turned out to be very well spent. Because the first lucky break the plane experienced after a flock of Canada geese crashed into both its engines